Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. Have you ever had that feeling, that icky feeling of being sold to? I have, and my guess is you have too. Dr. Cindy McGovern is going to talk to us today about how to take the ick out of sales. That ick. Yeah, we all know what it tastes like. We know what it feels like. We don't like it. And so the idea here, though, is that we are all selling all the time. And if we don't learn to embrace it, if we don't learn that it's really creating opportunities for ourselves and others to get something that they need or want even, then we're going to have a lot of problems. Dr. Cindy McGovern is known worldwide as the first lady of sales. She has authored the best-selling Every Job is a Sales Job, How to Use the Art of Selling to Win at Work, and its award-winning follow-up, Sell Yourself, How to Create, Live, and Sell a Powerful Personal Brand. We're going to talk about those two books at the end of the interview. You're going to hear about the target markets for those. I think it's really smart how she structured those. She's the CEO of Orange Leaf Consulting, as well as an online learning portal, Orange Leaf Academy, where you can also get some online training there. Her mission is to take the ick out of sales and to connect her audiences with tools and ideas to engage their innate selling skills, helping them to achieve their professional and personal goals. There's a whole list of things we talk about, a little bit of this really like tactical sales stuff, like what you typically think about at the beginning of the interview. And kind of halfway through, we transition, kind of sprinkle in a lot through some of the beginning, is this idea of how leaders and managers need to sell, and selling ideas and selling ourselves and selling a vision. All those things that are very, very important. So if you're not a salesperson, don't skip this interview. It's very important for all of us to listen to what Cindy has to say. Here we come. Dr. Cindy, hello.
Hi.
So cool to meet you. So cool to see you. So cool to be with you. This is going to be a really good conversation because I know that everybody feels the pain. Well, not everybody. I think there's some people that like it, but I'm going to say for some of those like myself who have a hard time with it, I think this interview is going to be very, very relevant.
Well, I am excited to be here. It's so nice to know you, and thanks for having me.
You got it. All right. Let's just start off with the icky. All right. I take that word from you because you take the ick out of sales. I didn't know ick was in sales, but apparently it is. It's like, I don't know, like I'm so concerned about being one of those sales people that I hold back. Why am I doing that?
Because we've all been sold before, sold by that guy or that gal that you're talking about. And so our fear is that we're going to become that person. Our fear is that if I sell or if I try to sell, that I'm going to be perceived that same way, that ickiness. And it's not true. We sell every day, all day. I guarantee that you have made successful sales today already. It's just, we don't call it sales. We think sales is when you have to stop everything, push something on someone else. It's manipulative, it's cheesy, it's all these things. It's so not true. It's about helping other people. So if you reframe the idea of sales, kind of changes the whole game. And I believe that sales is helping other people. I believe that sales is sometimes walking away when you don't have a way to help them. So that's how I help take the ick out of selling, because I don't think there should be one to begin with.
Okay. I like this word influence, and I contrast that with the idea of manipulation. I do a keynote on influence, and one of the things I talk about is the difference between manipulation and influence. And as salespeople, I take it that we want to influence and build and empower rather than manipulate, which I think a lot of people interpret sales as manipulation. Can you talk about your difference there between the two?
Absolutely. So I think influence is around informing. It's around inviting. And I think manipulation is around pushing and forcing and shoehorning them into a solution that may or may not fit. And so if I'm influencing you, I'm making sure you have all the information to inform you so that you can make a decision. And I'm inviting you to be a part of this in a partnership with us or buy our services or our products or whatever it happens to be, versus saying, I don't really care if this is good for you or not, but you should buy it. And then I've taken away your choice. I've taken away your power. And that's when we feel like we've been sold, is when our power has been taken, our choice has been taken. And that's not what I'm about. That nobody wants to be that. Even the guy or gal that sells that way, I don't believe really wants to be that. I think maybe they just haven't been taught another way.
I love like that idea of your power being taken away, because I was reading something earlier too today about that idea of manipulation versus influence, and she's talking about storytelling and manipulating through story or influencing through story. And that idea of manipulation is the withhold. Her idea was talking about the withholding of information in order to control a desired outcome from their standpoint. And if that is what you're trying to do, is manipulate the situation so that you get the thing you want and control the thing you want, that means the other person lacks that control.
Yeah.
Their power is taken away because I want to keep all the power in the sales conversation.
Yeah. And that's when it feels icky, is because when I feel like I have absolutely no choice, I'm backed into a corner, I can't get away from you, it feels gross and it's not good for anybody. And then here's the thing that really just drives me nuts though, Scott, is even if you're selling in that way, you're forgetting that that person, yeah, you may have made that one sale, but that person's now a walking, talking commercial for you. That's not good. So you maybe made the transactional sale, but you just created an awful commercial for the experience that person went through. So your influence over time just went down because instead of advocating for you, I'm advocating against you. Like, that's really scary that people don't think about that. They don't think beyond the headlights of the sale that they're engaged in at that moment.
And we call that your personal brand. Yeah.
Yes.
and that thing that follows you around, because in the moment you're so desperate for that sale that you're willing to jeopardize that image that you have. But then long term, you're like,
yeah,
I can't get away from that. I can't get away from that. That, you know, that thing. That's that's what's scary. People thought about it.
It's true. I invite people to think about this, like at the mall. We all have that store or that kiosk that you walk by and they're basically stalking you from 20 paces. And you're like wanting to pick up your cell phone, pretend like you're on a call or something, like anything to not make eye contact, to not have an excuse. That's the ick part. And what's happened is you have just felt like all your control was taken, all of your choice was taken. They're literally chasing you. And then you're like giving the wide berth to get away. And what's interesting is you're literally going to avoid it from there on out. You will literally like go upstairs at the mall to not have to walk past that anymore. Think about that. That's your brand. I'm going to go out of my way to avoid you now. That's what you sold. That's really scary.
And the thing is as you talk about it, all the listeners, including myself, are like, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Like we all get it because we've all felt it, you know.
Totally.
It's that teenager that's using the splat ball across the, like against the wall, and, you know, like coming over asking if you want to spray some cologne on or whatever it is, you know. It's that. So I think we feel it. And that's what we don't want, is that and I think that's, I don't know. Is that the reason why we don't want to become that salesperson? Because that is that is more the norm than it is the exception. Like, is that the problem out there with sales? So, like, what is it?
You know what's funny though, Scott? I don't know that it's the norm. And here's why I don't think it's the norm, because we have successful sales all day long. Like we're a consumer industry of humans, right? Like literally we are a consumption nation in a global economy, right? So there are very successful sales happening all day, every day. I think the problem is we go to the lowest common denominator when we're looking for a definition of something. So when we say the word sales, we know the caricatures and the characters that are portrayed in media and in films, and we think about the worst experience. So instead of thinking of all the wonderful positive sales, like the fact that your dentist sells you, the fact that you bought your car and you went back and bought a second car from that same person, the fact that you use the same realtor more than once, the fact that you go to the same cashier at the grocery store, these are all salespeople. We just don't categorize them as salespeople because they're not the guy or gal at the kiosk at the mall. But I think that's a smaller population, in my opinion, because there are so many successful sales out there. And what's funny is when people say, well, Cindy, I don't want to be a salesperson. I'm like, you already are. You're selling yourself all day, every day. That's your personal brand. That's who you are. So sorry to tell you, but you're already in that role. Might as well do it on purpose. But I think your fear or concern around being that kind of salesperson is actually your best guardrail, because since you're afraid of it, you're never going to be it because you're aware of it.
Why do you believe that sales is such a good life skill?
I think it should be taught in high school, where we use it all day. And you might call it influence as well. But the first thing you do when you graduate is you go on a job interview. That's a sales conversation. But you're not taught that that's a sale. You're taught that it's a job interview. It's something else. But you are literally using the exact same skills that a skilled sales professional would use to influence that interviewer to hire you. And when you go and you convince your kids to eat their broccoli, when you convince your spouse or your business partner to go to this place versus that place, sale, 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 sale. We just don't call it sales.
So what are those skills then that I'm using as, a young person coming in for my job interview? Maybe I'm an older person going in for a job interview. Maybe I am trying to sell myself. I'm trying to sell an idea. I'm trying to sell some. What are those same skills that I would use there that I would use to sell a splat ball at the mall? Or, something like, what am I using in your world that is the same?
So every good sales professional has a sales process, and some of them can articulate it, the 9 steps or whatever. But I whittle it down to 5 very simple steps that I think you use in any sale, whether it's a sale to get your kid to eat their broccoli, whether it's a sale to sell the splat ball, whether it's a sale for a big negotiation as a consultant, as a coach, as a keynote speaker. First thing is you have to have a plan. You have to know what it is you're trying to accomplish to begin with. And having a really solid plan is good for anything. It's good for going to the grocery store. It's good for a business, but it's good for the sale. And even if it's not some formal written out plan of attack, it's still a plan where you're very clear that my job is to make this happen in the next X amount of time. Second thing is you have to find the right opportunity. So just like those folks at the kiosk in the mall, they're waiting for you to accidentally make eye contact. That's an opportunity. When you accidentally walk too close to the kiosk, that's an opportunity. So find that moment where your plan and that chance occurs. And sometimes you have to make it. Sometimes you make the opportunity for yourself. Then you have to establish trust. And this is the most important part, in my opinion, of any sales process, because without trust, no sale is going to happen. Even when I go to the grocery store, I have a trust exercise that happens before I reach on the shelf and get any product. I go through my mind and I think this is going to be safe for me to consume or use. Trust. So there has to be that trust for the sale to actually occur. Then you have to ask. You have to ask for the business. You have to ask for the sale. And then there's some kind of follow-up and follow through so that you make sure I become an advocate for you, or I'm continuing to use your services, use your products, buy them again. So at the very, very fundamental level, those are the 5 steps.
And where do most people mess up their sales process, or mess up their sales pitch, or their whatever? What keeps them from closing?
So I think a lot of people don't ask. First of all, I think that's one of the most skipped sales process steps is you don't ask. You think, well, everybody knows that I do this, and everybody knows that I have this store or this product, or they know I work for this company. Well, did you ask for their advocacy? Did you ask them to help you? Did you ask for them to support you? And I see this a lot with managers, even, where they're trying to get their teams to grow the business, let's say. And they say, okay, well, it's going to take us all, everybody, all hands on deck. Well, if I don't leave that meeting knowing exactly what you want me to go do in my role and I'm not client facing, I don't think I have any bearing on this outcome. I don't feel empowered to go do it. You didn't ask me to do anything. But when you say, okay, Cindy, in your role, and I know you're not client facing, but when you have to get back to a colleague so they can get back to a customer, can you try to shave a couple minutes off of that? Now I know what to do. You asked me for the sale, you asked for my buy in. So it makes it a whole lot easier if people know exactly what the assignment is.
So why don't people ask?
We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid they're going to say no. We're afraid, oh gosh, it's going to be the worst thing ever if they don't buy into this. But what's funny is they're having the buyer's remorse conversation without you. So find out if it's a yes or a no. And I see this a lot of times with leaders, actually, where they assume there's buy-in on an idea because they've made a big announcement. There's this assumption that it came from the top, so clearly everybody knows what we're doing and they know what they're supposed to do. Well, did you ask them? Did you ask for their participation? Did you ask for their feedback? Did you follow up and make sure they understood what they were supposed to do? That's where it kind of falls down. Was there a why behind it? Were we clear on why this is important, or was it just a directive? And so knowing those pieces actually help you to not only be a better communicator, better leader, but a stronger organization, because then everybody really does feel empowered over that opportunity to help.
I guess I hear what you're saying. One of the things with the sales, I guess, conversation or the sales thing that I personally have struggled with, and let me just throw it out there from just the business side of things, is the chasing, is the creating the opportunity, right? As you would say. And I sit there and I go, like it's like the whole lead generation thing or the whole sales pitch thing. I just want people to just like call me, and then I say, here's what I do, and they say, cool, I want to buy that, and I say, here you go, and then they pay me. Like, can it be that way, Cindy? Can't we just have it be that way? It's the chasing, it's the follow-ups, it's the constant like getting them in, and then it takes 6 months and whatever. I mean, it's that whole grueling thing. What is that? Like, what am I talking about right now?
Well, I think it could be two things, Scott. Number one, it sounds like the plan is something that I would encourage working on first. Like, where are you looking for these people? Do you really have to chase them for 6 months? Is that the right prospect for you? Is that the right person to go after? Is that the sales cycle? If that's the normal sales cycle, great. But is there a way to shorten that? So that would be the first thing, is let's look at the plan and kind of look at the pond we're fishing in. And then the second piece is that opportunity part is, how do you advocate? How are you getting other people to advocate for you? You know, marketing and advertising tells us that we have to see the same ad 6 to 8 times before we recognize that there's a new whatever product. There's your 6 months. It's that follow-up 6 to 8 times. It's human behavior. So everything we do at my consulting company, we base in human behavior research. Like, everything is based in, we're a bunch of nerds over here. So we do everything on that. And so it's around how you're changing behavior for people. And I think the biggest thing that I would say is, we can't take it personal, because we live in such a distracted world now that we have to remember we're not only competing for their business, we're competing for their attention. And I think once you get their attention, then you can have the business conversation. But it's competing for that attention that's so hard. And that's why the follow-up is so important.
Right on. And I think that there's some people that take it really personal, like you said. But I think that's really interesting what you said about the plan and understanding that piece of it, to make sure that you are doing the right things for that. Because if you're not, you're just going to burn out, and then you're going to say, "Oh, that doesn't work," and then throw your hands in the air, and then blame all of that comes with it. So I really like that aspect of things. When we get into this idea of brand and selling and nerding out on human behavior, whatever, what are some things that you love to talk about from the human behavior standpoint that is really helpful for people out there when they're selling a product, selling an idea, um, what do we, what's something there that you can give us, some nugget where it's like, oh, you should pay attention to this the next time you go into a sales conversation of any kind?
So the first thing that I always teach is ABC, which is not the old ABC of selling. That was always be closing. I don't agree with that. I don't think you should ever close. A sale should be the beginning of a partnership. A sale should be the beginning of a relationship. So why in the world would you ever call it closing? So I've never understood that. But I teach a different kind of ABC, and it's always be curious. So here's the nerd part of it, the PhD moment is, most people like to talk about themselves. Most people want to understand how something is going to impact them. What's the personal nature of it? And I'm not talking about personal in terms of becoming friends with your prospects, but personal in terms of how is your product or service going to impact their world, make their life easier, make their business better and stronger. And if you can get to that part by being curious, they're going to tell you exactly what it is they need so that you can invite them to work with you. But if you're not curious and you go in with your script of, I'm going to tell you all the 47 points that we have of what we do and what we offer, that's only about you. It has nothing to do with them. So I teach in all of our work that we do is around what's the treat for them and leading with that to make sure they feel like you're the most important, they're the most important thing, that they are really the reason. And sometimes the answer is that you have to walk away because you don't have a solution for them. Managers make this mistake, actually, and leaders make this mistake where they go in and they think, well, it's a corporate initiative. We need buy-in. We need 100% participation. Tell me why it's good for me. Tell me how it's going to be good for my job. Tell me how it's going to be good for me today. And that becomes part of your brand as a leader, is showing me that you care about me, that you see me, you value me. And then it's going to make me want to buy into that idea. But if it feels like it's a mandate, this happened when CRMs came around 20 years ago, and everybody's like, if it's not in the CRM, it doesn't exist. That's not about me. That sounds like it's a punitive thing. So how do you make it so that it makes my life easier, get buy-in from me? And I think those are the places where people kind of get a little sideways in the sales process. You forget that it's about how this helps the other individual, not how well you know your product.
When you talk about this from a manager or leadership standpoint, um, whether they're in a sales department or whether they're in HR or finance or marketing or whatever, it's a different thing we're talking about, but yet the same.
Yeah.
You may, again, not selling a widget, you're selling an idea, you're selling a new program, you're selling some new vision of what you're trying to do. And when we go into that process, it's really hard for, I think, for some leaders. They're like, why isn't everybody on board?
Yeah.
Like this, I say things and they're really smart.
Yeah.
But people don't get on board. I usually tackle that angle from like personality styles, and you are selling things from a logical standpoint when the person you're selling to wants it from a values type framework. Can you talk about personality styles, and do you go into that adapting to the person across from you?
Yeah, I think you have to, and that's where the plan comes into place, is how are they going to receive that message? So just going back to those 5 steps, like what's your plan to get buy-in from your whole group around whatever the message is? So let's say you're selling your idea, you're selling that vision. Well, IT is going to receive that a whole lot differently than your sales department. So in your messaging, you change the messaging for the room and reading the room and knowing that. So it's personality to a degree, but I actually think it's more than personality. It's messaging. And it's the way that you articulate how it's going to help each of those individuals. And I see this happen a lot also with leaders when, again, corporate mandate, something is changing, and it's even out of maybe leadership's hands. Well, that's a little harder pill for you to even swallow, to push down if you don't quite understand the why. So you've got to have a better plan of how you're going to do it. What's your follow-up conversations going to be to ensure buy-in and follow up and follow through? And I think that for most leaders, they know what to say. It's not what to say, it's how to say it.
It's not the what, it's the how.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good. So good. There's a lot of people out there that will also say, but I'm not a salesperson. Like,
Mhm.
I don't need that. What
Yeah.
do you say to those people?
Yeah, you are. You're selling already, and you might as well do it on purpose.
On
because
purpose.
you're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because you're selling all day every day anyways. And so that's part of the challenge. And I run into this with leaders too. They'll say, "Well, I don't need it, but my people do." Who do you think your people are watching? If you're not doing it right, how do you expect them to?
And like you said, whether you are in a support role or an IT role or you know some other role inside an engineering role, whatever you're doing, you may sit in a corner with headphones on and do something on your computer 8 hours a day. Um, but at some point, you are going to be selling, and it's so vital for people to understand if they can trust you or not. That goes
Mm-hmm.
into your brand. And what have you done in the past to cause them to want to believe you or get on board with your thing when you
Yeah.
do speak up?
Yeah.
Have we already burned a bridge that now we have to rebuild, and then we complain that nobody's getting on board with what we have to say or nobody listens to my ideas? But it's like, you burned so many bridges before. I don't want to listen to you yet. You
Yeah.
know, like I think that that's a big thing. Can you give me a story of somebody that's had a big impact, a big aha moment for them was, oh my gosh, I can do this, or I didn't like it before, that was icky before, I didn't think I had to do this before, but now it's something that I love, something that I embrace.
So actually, yeah, there's a great story. It was an insurance underwriter that was a client of ours, and it was a state manager. And when she came to us, she needed to grow her business. And originally, the idea was that it was her sales team that was the problem. Whenever we go into an organization, we assess the organization first. So I came back and I said, yeah, your sales team could be doing things differently, but it's actually your service team that needs the most help. And she was like, oh, they're subject matter experts. These people have, 30 plus years in the business. I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem is they're not selling. They're not selling their ideas properly. And so we started with her, and we started coaching her and helping her to understand a better plan, get a plan together, helping each side of the house buy into what the client experience looked like. So everybody was rowing in the same direction, because that was part of the rub, is sales would sell something, and then the service side of the house was dealing with it, and it was a bit of friction. It's like, well, they're overselling it and over promising, and they're under delivering, and so we said, well, hold on, let's just get everybody on the same plan, focusing on the same goals. And so we mapped out the client experience, and we said, okay, let's, in a perfect world, from the service side of the house, what does it look like? From the sales side of the house, what does it look like? Well, what's funny, Scott, is it looked the same, of course. Like, everybody wanted the same thing. I said, great. So if we know that these are the things, now let's look at your jobs and let's figure out who does what for each of these moments within the client experience. Well, then that gave them ownership over it. Then it was their idea, not something that corporate was pushing on them, not something the leader was pushing on them. And I remember there was a moment in the workshop where the manager, we were on a break, and she came up to me and she goes, I've said this 10 times and they're not listening to me. And I said, but you said it. You didn't solicit it. That was the problem. You didn't ask for their buy-in. You just told them what to do. I said, this is it. You're now selling them on this idea because it's partially theirs. They're bought into it. So then fast forward, make the story short, we got them actually committing to specific things they were going to do. And we started with 3. We said, okay, everybody can do 3 things, right? We're not going to give you like a list of 55 things. Everybody's going to do 3. And for the next 60 days, everybody's going to do these. And every week, we're going to report in as a group. We're going to say how it's working. That group, it was kind of amazing, actually, what they ended up doing. They were able to get better surveys from their clients. First of all, they started getting a lot more Google reviews. Second thing is they actually started getting more referrals, which was amazing to grow their business. And they were starting to get more business from their clients simply because they were working together as a team. Clients weren't getting stuck in the bottleneck that went from sales to service. They weren't getting stuck in that weird little vast wasteland of communication that happens. And so it was this incredible thing. So backing out of that, we finished by coaching the leader. And it was funny because I remember the day when she said this to me. She goes, I never thought I was a sales manager, but I guess I am. And I said, well, what changed? Why are you now a sales manager? And she said, because my job is to sell them on the vision I need them to execute. And I was like, oh, my work is done here. So, one of my favorite stories. One of my favorite stories.
That is an aha moment. If I didn't hear one, that's like, that is so good. Because she took on the identity of what that meant, because it meant something bigger than just the word, right? And it's that identity that she then owns, and then she feels responsible for communicating that. That is so cool. I love that. Tell me about this idea of unofficial. What's an unofficial sale?
So I think we make those all day. That's the one where, you're holding the door open for somebody because they have their arms full. That's actually an unofficial sale. You're selling them on the fact that you're a good human because you held the door open for them. No words maybe were exchanged. Maybe there was a smile or a glance, but that's an unofficial sale. You sold yourself to somebody else. So I think we do those all day. And that's part of who you are, your personal brand, and people know you. Like, there's a person in my neighborhood, and whenever I see her out with her dog, I'm out with my dog. We know each other. She's a neighbor, but we're not hanging out on Friday nights. But she always has something fun to say. She's always super positive. I know her dog. She knows our dog. Like, she's a lovely human. She sold me on that. And there are those all day. I guarantee you've made at least 10 of them just now, like before you even got on this podcast. Like, truly, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's really good. My daughter she came home from school one day, and she goes, and I think she was in 7th grade at the time, and she goes, "Hey, Dad, I just told my friend that about her personal brand." And I was like, "You did, huh?" And she goes, "Yeah, because you told me that your personal brand is basically you are the kind of person who does this thing. So my friend was not being really good to this other person. And I said, you are becoming the person that doesn't treat people very well. And that is your brand, and it will follow you around." And I was like, oh, I taught this to my 7th grader, and she's making me so proud. And so now I have a title for that. It's an unofficial sale. That's really awesome. Because that person isn't, like you're talking about, the hold the door person. Mm-hmm. That person is the kind of person that holds the door for people when they have their hands full. It's that simple little memory that people have in their minds, the millions of micro brand impressions that people have that shape that overall experience.
Very true.
So good. Unofficial sale. Okay. Thank you. I now have vocabulary for what I was doing. Tell me about your books, though. You have like books in the background. I want to know what those are, and I want to know how they work. Who's the target for them, and what's included in those?
So Every Job is a Sales Job was my first book, and I wrote it for my 18-year-old self. It's the class that I missed, and I think that we all should be taught, and it's literally dedicated to anybody who ever said, I'm not a salesperson. It's, a sales team could get something out of this. Absolutely. It can help them shorten their sales cycle, but it's really for everybody that needs to sell their ideas, their products, their services themselves. And then the follow-up to that is Sell Yourself, which is on personal branding and how to create, live, and sell a powerful personal brand and make a bigger impact. And that one's really great for leaders, for managers who are trying to build themselves. It's also really good for people in some kind of a transition or career transition, or you're moving up, you're now a manager and you're managing who used to be your colleagues that you would hang out with. That's a good one for them as well. And then the other ones are translations into different languages of the books.
Cool. That's very cool. And I assume anybody can get those anywhere?
They are available at every major bookseller.
Okay. Very cool. And I hear that you speak everywhere all the time, doing awesome stuff. And like, what's your tour look like? Where do you like to speak? What's your thing?
Oh my gosh. I love speaking. I love working events. I love working inside of organizations and helping to motivate their teams to embrace I call it your inner 5-year-old. We all have that inner 5-year-old that can sell. So I love to go and empower them, but our focus is always growth. It's always growth for the organization, growth for the individual. And so that's the themes and topics, is getting all hands on deck to grow a business, helping your team to become walking ambassadors for your organization, and then empowering you to be the best version of yourself and to sell yourself so that you can create greater influence in your career and in your life.
Oh, I bet you're kind of fun to listen to.
Thanks. I try to make it fun and funny.
I can see you. I mean, you've got a presence about you that is that's pretty bold and fun and like out there. I feel like I would not fall asleep in one of your talks.
I hope not. I give a lot of homework in my talks, and I think it's important to give assignments. So I try to do a lot of audience participation, and I really feel like if you're laughing, you're learning. So
good. Give me some homework right now.
Ooh, okay.
Here's your challenge.
So I want to give it to you, but I want to give it to the rest of your listeners too.
Okay.
First thing is, I think you should take a brand inventory. Know what your personal brand is, know what you're selling. Ask some of your folks around you, ask your kids, they'll always be honest. But 5 words to describe you. And then find out if those are the words that you really want to be known as. As a leader, are these the words that you really want? Are these your legacy? And then if they're not, figure out what you need to change. And then that's when you create that plan to really sell people on that different idea. Are you the guy or gal that holds the door open for somebody that has their hands full or not? If you're not known as that, but you think you are in your mind, let's change that, because that's the part of your brand you need to sell others on. And it's like we have this idea where, well, my work persona and my home persona, you're still the same person. We're all just human. So let's figure out how to meld those. But that's the first homework assignment. And then the second homework assignment is, I think you need to actually sell it. I think the goal is to figure out who you need to sell it to, go do something and ask for their support. And that asking is the hardest part, because like we said earlier, you don't want to be told no, you feel icky, but it's remembering that you're asking for someone's advocacy. And if you've given them enough that they believe in you, they're going to want to help you. And I say this to people all the time. I'm like, do you have a net or do you have a network? Your network is purposefully advocating for you. A net just means you know a bunch of people. So as a leader, is your network of employees, of colleagues, of people that you know working for you? Ask them.
Well said. All right. Challenge accepted.
I look forward to the assignment.
Hey, let's do it. There's a thing out there called the internet, and I want to know where people can find you.
I've heard of it. I think it might stick around, so they can find me on any of the major. It's just a concept, right? They can find me on any of the social media platforms, 1ST Lady of Sales, First Lady of Sales, or if you just Google Dr. Cindy McGovern, it will come up as well. But I'd love to hear the success stories. I'd love to hear how folks actually take this assignment and do it. And that's one of my favorite things, is when people will message me and they'll say, oh my gosh, I did it and it worked. So please do share those successes.
Love it. Dr. Cindy, you're awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Are you influencing individuals into something that is empowering for them, where they feel empowered, they feel like there's a partnership going on, there's a conversation happening? Or are you manipulating? Are you withholding information in order to control the outcome of the event and therefore disempowering the other individual? That's a problem. And that's where the ick comes in. If we can learn to influence and learn to build our influence through, 1, building our personal brand, but then number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is, like she said, creating a solid plan, looking for opportunities, sometimes creating the opportunities, building that level of trust that we really all need and want in order to buy something from somebody else, or for people to buy things from us, whether that is a widget or an idea. Are we asking? I think she honed in on this idea of asking and following up quite a bit as the thing that hurts our ability to get an idea across, or people to buy into the thing that we're selling. And if we don't understand that we need to ask for that that's participation, ask for that thing that we need from those people, and then learn to follow up with them, we're going to have a hard time selling. Really, really smart. Always be curious. ABC. Always be curious. Ask questions and act as one of my colleagues says, like the dumbest person in the room. There's something very humbling about that. And also that you're going to learn. You've got to learn what they need, how this thing is going to impact their world in order for them to truly buy into the thing that you have to offer. I'm grateful for Cindy. Thank you for being here and spreading your wisdom. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit skotwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.